of power. They're also talking about education and healthcare. And Abhay had alluded to the pathetic state of our schools and our healthcare centers. They made that a priority. They've gone out on a limb. They've made videos showing how poor it is and how bad it is and why it desperately needs to be improved. Now, these are things that I've mentioned with regard to the Aam Aadmi Party, and there's also a personal side to it. Now, if you think about Arvind Kejriwal and his public, clearly the public view him as somebody who's a man of very high integrity and honesty, and the government missionary has been after him for the last 3 to 4 years and have been trying to dig up dirt on him, but haven't been successful. Now, someone who's been up to that level of scrutiny, he goes out today and when he addresses public meetings, he says, please go out and vote. I don't care if you don't vote for the Aam Aadmi Party, but please go out and vote. Now, that is political leadership that I've never seen in India. You can't imagine a politician who goes out and says, I don't care if you don't vote for me, for my party. But he routinely does that. That is because he wants to highlight to the people that it's just the starting point of performing your civil responsibilities, civic responsibilities rather. So once you start voting in elections as the next step, you could participate in a lot of the decision making, and there could be more of a participatory form of democracy which he has envisioned, and he has talked about at length in his book Swaraj. Now, the other thing he also does is when the party was started and to this day, he goes around saying, we are here to change the politics of this country. Now, when he says we are here to change the politics of this country, he talks primarily about, it's not just about going and having a party, contesting elections, winning elections, replacing the existing party, and doing exactly what they're doing under a different label. That's not the intent. The intent is to change public discourse. The intent is to change how politics is conducted in the country. So he has a much broader purpose of why the Aam Aadmi Party exists. And I think it's the power of this purpose that is being so successful in energizing people who have actually come out and work for the party. You have people who are retired, who just the other day I was reading from a Facebook post where a gentleman who's retired in the UK is actually coming to work for the Aam Aadmi Party for the next 4 months. You have people who have put their jobs on hold. You have people who have put their education on hold. You have people who have put their businesses on hold to work for the Aam Aadmi Party. Clearly, the power of that purpose works. And the intent behind the party is idealistic for sure, and that also seems to have garnered a lot of support among the people. So, at the end of the day, no one is perfect, and everybody has, if I go around the room and ask people who are following politics closely, I'm pretty sure that everybody will have some pet peeve or the other to say about the Aam Aadmi Party. But at the end of the day, I think the important thing is that the leadership of the party and the party as a whole has its heart in the right place. And that is a phenomenal beginning, I think, for Indian politics. Now, there is an interesting saying in, actually it's a Chinese proverb. It says, the man who moved a mountain is the one who started by taking away the small stones. So at this point, to imagine the Aam Aadmi Party as a fourth alternative is really far-fetched, and I'm not trying to do that here. So it's about winning Delhi, being successful in Delhi, and then spreading that mission across the rest of the country. And lastly, I want to talk a little bit about the Indian middle class. Now, how many of you believe that you had a middle class upbringing while you were growing up in India? I certainly did. So you'll be able to relate to what I'm about to tell you. Interesting thing about the Indian middle class is that when it comes to complaining, we are absolutely the champions. We will sit back all day long, get together with our friends in social settings, and complain till the cows come home. We will say, the electricity bills are too high, onions are too expensive, my servant lady didn't show up, I had to pay, bribe at the police station, etc., etc. But when it comes to doing something about it, we are absolutely the last ones. We will sit back and won't want to move a finger. We'll pontificate like armchair salesmen and expect somebody else to do the job on our behalf. Now, the worst part is that on top of all of this, the middle class never bothers to go out and vote in elections. And that's the killer, because you have the politicians don't see the middle class as a vote bank. Now, here's the good news. In Arvind Kejriwal and the Aam Aadmi Party, you finally have someone who's willing to fight your battles on your behalf. And for the first time, repeatedly over the last 3 years, they have shown that they're willing to put their lives on the line, willing to put their families at risk, put their futures on the line to make this happen. And they're faced up to the most extreme harassment from the state machinery to continue this battle. And at this stage, if we don't do what it takes to make them successful, then we'll be sitting here 20 years from now with an even longer list of complaints. And at that point, you don't want to look back and say, we had this party who we could have supported and we didn't do what it takes to make them successful. So to end, I really am optimistic about the success of the Aam Aadmi Party, and I hope they are successful, because if they are, I think it will change Indian politics for good and forever. Thank you.
Thank you, Pran. Our final panelist today is Mr. Gurcharan Das, a well-known author, commentator, public intellectual, columnist. I mean, I could go on for hours. He's the author of The Difficulty of Being Good, the international bestseller India Unbound, which has been translated into many languages and filmed on the BBC. His other works include a novel, A Fine Family, a book of essays, The Elephant Paradigm, 3 plays consisting of Lawrence Saab, Mira, and Nine Jakku Hill. Gurcharan writes regular columns for a number of Indian newspapers, including Times of India, and guest columns for Newsweek, Wall Street Journal, Foreign Affairs. He graduated from Harvard University and was CEO of Procter & Gamble, India, before he took early retirement to become a full-time writer. He lives in Delhi and is currently visiting UC Berkeley in a very distinguished position as this year's Regents Lecturer. So let me turn it over to you, Gurcharan.
Thank you, Bob. And certainly you have provided some very inspiring reasons why we are here and why we should support the Aam Aadmi Party. And the Aam Aadmi Party, this book actually began in Tahrir Square when the democracy movement in Egypt invited me to come and present the India model for the future of Egypt. And the day after I came back from Egypt is when I met Arvind Kejriwal. And he came to my home. And I've described that in one of the chapters in this book, chapter 8, called Confronting Corruption. I think the Aam Aadmi Party, whether it succeeds or fails, has actually done a great achieved a historical purpose. And that is, it has woken up the Indian middle class that you spoke about. And it's created awareness. And this kind of thing is not going to go away. It actually began, some of you may remember, even before Arvind Kejriwal,